Hello, all. So, I promised last time that I would do something more on procedural rules for training. These are the way I conduct my training. It has to do with my own preferences, and I will give reasons for them because it's very important to do that. Anyway, these are training procedures that will help you immensely if you understand their value. Let's start real basically when you're attacking somebody. In order to really have the intent and proper dynamics when you attack somebody, there has to be a period where you gain a certain amount of understanding of what you're doing. So it's difficult. A good habit to follow is even if you go very slow, and you can start extremely slow, always go through your target so that the person knows that that punch will arrive, that cut will arrive, etc., etc. Go slow to start until you get more comfortable, but make the attack, even if it's slow, as though it's a real attack and you hit, okay? You can hit like this. You don't have to be aggressive at first. But if you don't do that, then the person isn't really practicing against a realistic attack, okay? Then you work up to more intensity, more speed, etc., etc. On the flip side of that, the person who is attacking and defending. When you're defending, don't cheat. If I'm punching you at this speed, then you do your technique at that speed. You don't want to try to beat the person with speed. You'll gain bad habits that way. So gradually work up to a point where you have more force, more speed, more yada yada, but always follow through as though you're going through the target. Always be realistic with your attacks, okay? If this is a knife, I see a lot of people, you'll see me correct people all the time in my videos. You come out and you hold it out. That's not how you stab. Now, you may stab like you're going through a person, a psycho type thing, or do that, fine. But 9 times out of 10, if you're practicing against a stab attack, you're bringing the weapon back, okay? So when you do that stab, I don't care how fast you do it, make sure you bring it back. So the person is responding to a real attack that would occur, okay? And do variations of that. So, for example, if you're stabbing here, don't always come all the way back here. Okay, act like you're shanking the person to let them make an adjustment to that, to understand what has to be adjusted from the technical aspect on their part, okay? So, important. Make your attacks good. And when you defend against those attacks, go at the same speed. Don't cheat with speed. I'm also going to talk about when I'm teaching you something online, because I'm going to be offering this stuff online at a much more basic level so people can work up and be very good and competent. Most of what I have right now is very sophisticated stuff for my students. But procedurally, if I don't even do demos, but if I did a demo, okay, that means nothing to you except vainglory to say he's good. I don't need that from anybody. I've been doing this for almost 50 years. Demos for a lot of 90% are shit, okay? If I'm showing you movement, I'm showing you movement. I'm not going to do anything that looks particularly special because I'm more interested in you understanding what I'm trying to show you, not in trying to look good. This is a major thing as you get better and as you practice. Practice to get good. Don't practice to look good. Okay? I'll say that again. Practice to get good. Don't practice to look good. It's very easy to just be like, pow, 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 and the person flies around. Don't do that. And a lot of people do this. And it gets stuck there in various sneaky ways that they don't even realize. When you're practicing with your uke and you're doing a technique that requires more than one one particular sequence, you should be moving, readjusting virtually everything that you're doing in that attack. If you're not, then you're not going to do well if you try to use that technique in the street. So, for example, even if I go slowly, boom, okay, move before the second punch. Even if I'm doing a combo, strike, move, offline, strike. Okay? Don't just stand there because watch fights. Watch how people fight. They move. Okay? You need to practice that way. Along those same lines, when you're showing things and you're trying to do different things with balance, etc., be skeptical. Try them. That's the point. A lot of the things that I'm going to show you, that I've shown you, they really don't look like they work. And that's perfectly okay to say. You have to try them to understand why they work. Okay? What you'll begin to understand is that there's a whole aspect of martial arts that people have sort of put by the wayside in order to get into this mode of getting into a ring and slugging it out or what have you. Those are perfectly legitimate practices, but jiu-jitsu as a science, as opposed to just wrestling as a science or striking as a science, is grounded in this idea of how you utilize force and how you redirect force in the process of moving and doing your thing. You have to feel that. You have to practice it and you have to modify it. So, accordingly, procedurally, when you're doing things like wrist locks, practice them and pay attention to the interslice between the technique, not so much the technique. So if I'm doing this, I should be able to reverse it to that. Okay? It should be automatic if I have to. Okay? That's a way of getting good habits that way. Then you can focus on the details, like when you're doing this, not bridging the wrist, okay? Where you want to put pressure, if you're doing this, what direction you're going, where the elbow is, things like that. But before you even do that, get a sense of how it's supposed to flow when you're in that position. Because the thing that makes jiu-jitsu so powerful is when you're readjusting, you're constantly throwing the person off control. You're taking their center. And at any time, you should be able to stop them. At the higher levels, when somebody grabs you, you should move in such a way that you basically have their balance and you can take them with a temiwaza. Okay? So it doesn't even look like jiu-jitsu. Okay? The person grabs, pow. That's not jiu-jitsu. You just hit him here. The technique is how I move that shoulder, move him off balance. So he is depending on me for his balance, how I'm not entangled with him, even if he thinks he has me, and how he's set up so easily for that technique. Again, very important. When you train, look at the things on that level, the in between the technique, more than the technique. Which brings me to my next point. The devil is always in the details. And a lot of Japanese instructors do this as a rite of passage for their students. But the more that you can feel the technique and see what's really going on, not what's being explained, the more you'll have success. So you have to watch and not be diverted by the obvious, okay? In everything that you do in martial arts, you have omote and ura. Omote is that which is seen, the obvious, the technical details. The ura is that which is hidden, the occult, that which underlies, which you have to look and really understand to really get the nature of the technique. So you'll notice that you get different types. Some people, they're very technically gifted. They pick up the technical aspects of the technique right away. I have a lot of people that I've practiced with over the years like that. I want to kill them all. I mean, it's such a nice skill to have. I don't think like that. I can't do that. I have other students, and I'm along this path, they don't understand the specifics at all, and they'll get the hands mixed up, yada yada, but they get the nature of the technique right away. The feeling behind it, the thing that makes really work as a technique, that makes it effective. Okay? So be wary of both those things when you're training. You want to really, it's easier to pick up the technical details than to understand exactly what makes those details work, if they work. Okay? Okay. So procedurally, be tough on yourself. You gotta be. Be tough on yourself and understand that there's a sacrifice here. And the sacrifice is 9 times out of 10, the people that really look spectacular, they have the nice uniform and do the nice demos. I hate to say this, but there are a few of them that can kick it, but I that's a red flag. Okay, you want to really see beyond that because there's a lot of ego in the martial arts. There's a lot of people calling each other senseis and grandmasters, and dressing to the T, and the only thing it really does is it puts a sort of impromptu a mark on the person, that they think that they're special. That's dangerous. You want people to think you're ordinary. I'm just a fat guy, you know, who's, like a YouTube warrior, and I make these videos. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That's fine by me, okay? Because, part of understanding martial arts is all the things in your training that you're really training for. What is danger? Danger, to sense danger before it happens, is the goal. Because most dangerous situations, the more you're into them, by the time it comes down to where you're fighting with somebody and you have to depend on some sort of brute force to take care of business, you've kind of in a very equalized position to them. Okay? I can give you numerous examples of this. There was a Gracie brother. He got attacked on the subway, and he got the guy, but the guy threw him, and he almost hit his head. Now, do you really want to let it come to that point where you almost hit your head? That's dangerous, okay? No matter how good you are, if you hit your head on the concrete, you know. On the other hand, I was training with a guy once, and we were doing a gun disarm. He was a big, strong guy, and he didn't know his own strength. He pushed me really hard, and I went flying backwards. And something kind of went off like an electric shock, like move, and I moved my head, and I fell, and everybody was looking at me. What I had just done was right directly behind me was an iron girder. If my head had been straight back, I probably would have concussed. Okay? I don't know how I sensed that danger, but cultivate those things, okay, in your training by understanding procedurally what you can do to be better. Another example of that, when you're learning jiu-jitsu, a lot of times you do practice getting in a hold and things like that, but also practice, and as you get better, practice more and more not being grabbed in the first place, okay? The real art is as soon as something touches you, you've taken their balance. And that way, you can avoid all these things that people can do to you, okay? With the wrestler, the boxer, the knife guy. So keep that in mind as you get better. You want to orient. And for example, when I practice, I'm always in a position where if the person has to follow up, they have to make an adjustment, okay? I don't care, no matter what. When I practice, I will never put myself in a position where when I move from step A to step B, it's me or them who can get the next technique in, okay? I'm going to be at an angle or in a position where they have to make an adjustment to hit me properly, to have any force, to cut with any force, to grab, etc. Okay? Practice those things early. They're very, very good habits. Okay? Very important. Um, there's a famous scene in Kurosawa's film, The Seven Samurai, where they're showing the different levels when they're recruiting for the army. And the first guy is played by Mifumi as the farmer. He comes in, whoa, I'm a samurai, and gets smacked upside the head. Ah, what's the meaning of this? They look at him like, I guess we'll put him for cannon fodder. The next guy's a little better than Mifumi. He comes in, as the guy comes out from behind the door to attack, he counters it. What's the meaning of this? Just to test. The guy who really knows his business comes up. He looks in the doorway and he laughs. Don't try that with me. Because he knows, he senses it already. And that's what you want to cultivate. So, again, train hard, but understand that when people start doing things that are very aggressive, it'll only cause a lot of problems. So, you want to train very tough and intensely, but you got to teach people to be focused with that. And there are a lot of reasons for this. First of all, it won't help anybody get better. Okay? Second of all, if somebody really is very dangerous, they will really hurt somebody. Okay? And when you start dealing with real techniques, you have to understand that. So learn to understand the difference between sort of ego-driven aggression, where people are just kind of getting hurt, and, legitimately feeling things out, going hammer and tongs, maybe playing very rough, but developing a capacity to appreciate technical refinements as they come. Very important procedural thing. As far as what to look for that way, just look for how people are responding, if they're getting upset, etc. I hope that helps. Those are just a few important aspects.